problem is the game. I think there is a flaw in the game.
A flaw in the game of Survivor.
Yes.
He is right, you know. His conclusion is stupid and wrong, but there is some merit to his thought process. I'm gonna need you to go into this one with an open mind. With the finale of Survivor 40 Several happening tomorrow, with part 2 of the 2-part finale of Survivor 40 Several, in which we get 2 slightly longer episodes instead of 1 really long episode, and the first episode had no real need to be called a finale beyond marketing, happening tomorrow, I've noticed a problem with Survivor Juries. And maybe you've noticed it too. Over the years, Survivor Juries have gotten way more homogenous. Or have they? Today, we're going to analyze jury votes over the years, figure out what the trends are, figure out why those trends occurred, and see if there are any ways we can fix Survivor Juries. Real quick, gotta shout out fellow Survivor YouTuber Once Upon an Island who inspired me to take a look at this. If you think this video will have some hot takes, you should check out his latest video talking about Survivor unpopular opinions, including my own. After this one, please. Let's get into it. The goal of a Survivor jury is to decide the winner of the game. That seems pretty straightforward, right? A key part of playing Survivor well is ensuring the people you send to the jury like you and want to vote for you at the end. But what a jury likes is a tricky thing to pin down. Some jurors like having their butts kicked. Some jurors like having their butts kissed. Some jurors like big flashy moves. Some jurors like small subtle moves. Some jurors like people who aren't so feckless.
Your overall gameplay could be called...
Here it comes.
Feckless.
Feckless.
In my opinion, you can't really judge a final tribal council before it happens. Well, you can if you're doing edgic stuff, but I'm also mean on the island itself as a finalist. I don't think many people walk into final tribal council expecting to lose. And that's because they know every jury is looking at the game through their own unique lens, and this makes it impossible to predict what will be valued. Or at least that used to be the case. Let's walk through time real quick. In the first 10 seasons of the show, 5 final tribal councils were decided by just a single vote. Borneo, the Australian Outback, Marquesas, Thailand, and All Stars. That's 5 different seasons where it's pretty safe to say it could have gone either way. The jury truly was divided. People were weighing up different games against one another and reckoning with what they valued the most to ultimately cast their very personal final vote. A single wrong answer, and some of these winners may very well have been losers. In the second 10 seasons, Guatemala to Heroes vs Villains, there were only 2 seasons decided by 1 vote. Sort of. Those being Cook Islands and Gabon. Yeah, these 2 final tribal councils really have a lot in common. You've got 2 titans of the game going up against one another. I can see why the juries had such a hard time deciding here. The reason I said sort of is that there were also 2 seasons where 1 flipped vote would have caused a tie, those being China and Micronesia. I think it's fair to call those close votes as well. That's 4 more seasons with juries that truly wanted different things, and hard-fought battles to convince just enough jurors that your way of getting to the end was the most deserving. And for those keeping track, that means in the first 20 seasons of Survivor, we had 9 close votes out of 20 final tribal councils. From Nicaragua to Worlds Apart, there was 1 close vote, and it was Nicaragua. The remaining 9 votes ranged from kind of close to complete blowouts. It appears we've gone from juries that have different ideas about what they want, to juries seemingly having a pretty good idea about what they want, and for some reason, what they want is not Albert.
Seriously, if you start with a compliment, like, Coach is a nice guy, but that would lose my vote.
All right, I love this question. I love the way you approach the game.
After Nicaragua, we would not see another tight vote for 15 seasons, because from Cambodia to Winners at War, there was once again only 1 tight vote. That being the only semi-interesting thing that happened in the post-merge of Ghost Island. The true battle of social game versus strategic game, if you want to believe the edit. It's clear that in this stretch of the show, juries knew exactly what they were looking for. And while juries like to claim what they're looking for is big moves or a good resume, I think in all honesty, the criteria to secure a jury vote has not changed from Borneo to now. Juries are still looking for someone who played a game that they can respect, and that they can feel happy about giving their vote for $1 million to. What has changed is we've started to more clearly define what it means to play a game that they can respect. We'll get to that soon, but let's quickly look at New Era votes. From the New Era, we've had only 2 tight votes, and interestingly enough, both of those have been our latest season. I'm thankful for that because I don't know if my soul could have taken any more 7-1 jury votes. And you know what, I'm making my prediction here. The final tribal council of Survivor 40 Several will not be tied. It will be Rachel dog walking over whoever she sits next to. Please clown on me in the comments if I'm wrong. Also subscribe while you're down there. We've gone from 9 out of 20 jury votes being torn about what it is they truly want from the finalists, to 11 out of 40, to 13 out of 40 several, assuming I'm not completely wrong about tomorrow night. What caused this? What made juries so homogenous? Like many things in life, there are a few answers. And also like many things in life, I primarily blame Jeff Probst. I will quickly look at the suspiciously Philip and Sherry and Russell-shaped elephants in the room and acknowledge that yes, as Survivor has evolved, so too has the strategy. It could be argued that juries have become more homogenous simply because people have gotten better at dragging unlikable people to final tribal council. It's a fair point, but I think the problem runs deeper, and people getting better at Survivor made the jury's job easier is kind of a boring video. Also, accepting this means possibly accepting that Final 3 and forced firemaking are good improvements to the game at face value, so we'll talk about that another time. Instead, let's talk about an interesting parallel. Survivor juries are becoming more like real-life juries. In real life, the goal of a jury is to provide a unanimous verdict as to whether or not someone is guilty. They listen to the evidence, deliberate, and come back with full agreement. You can't send someone to jail with a 3-2-2-1 plurality vote. Probably, I've never actually served on a jury before. The same idea has seemingly leached into Survivor juries. Now that there's a more fixed and alleged correct way to play Survivor, the juries come in looking for that specific thing. When they listen to the evidence, they're doing their best to come to an objective conclusion as to who has played the best game, leading pretty directly to our lack of close jury votes in the more superfan casting era of Survivor. You can't really blame juries for going in this direction, I think, considering the format of Final Tribal Council has changed from air your grievances however you see fit to make your own personal decision, to asking the question, who's best fulfilled the mantra of the game, and therefore should be the person that we vote for, because as we all know the slogan, outwit, outplay, outlast, is literal gospel and not just something we thought sounded cool in the 2000s. Of course jurors are going to feel more pressure to succumb to groupthink. Building on that groupthink idea, it's important to acknowledge that juries aren't just left to their own thoughts. They spend a lot of time at Ponderosa together. The first juror, often referred to as the mayor of Ponderosa, plays a big role in deciding the tone of the jury. If they're a miserable cow, the next person is probably going to be miserable too. If they're both miserable, the third person is likely going to be pretty dour as well. Meanwhile, if the mayor is happy, the next person is likely to be happy, and so on. While the mood is set, the juries are talking to each other. They're constantly having their own version of tribal council. They're comparing stories to one another, they're seeing what adds up and what doesn't, and they're deciding what to reveal at Ponderosa based on whether or not they like the people still left in the game. Sometimes they're deciding to straight up lie at Ponderosa to tank someone's chances of winning. This is also why it's so important to send people to the jury that can vouch for you. It's not just at the final tribal, it's every single moment from the day they're voted out to the closing speeches that your number one should be convincing every single member of the jury you're actually pretty cool and very epic. There's a whole other game of Survivor being played in the jury phase that we don't even get to see. And I have a whole other sub-theory that the less kumbaya juries are more likely to produce split final tribal councils because the people on the jury don't like each other and are therefore less likely to spend that time together building up to the actual final tribal. Even ignoring these elements, the decisions that these jury members make are going to be aired to millions of people literally worldwide. I live in New Zealand, that's about as far away from America as you can get. If your decision were going to be aired to millions of the most, and I mean this lovingly because I am one of them, intensely passionate fans, wouldn't you also want to ensure that you are making what was seen as the objectively correct choice? And if we really want to put on our tinfoil hat, this still ignores all the production interviews that happened before Final Tribal Council, asking jurors what they want to see, possibly with leading questions. There are so many factors, from game evolution to production encouragement to straight up public image preservation that discourage us from having close jury votes nowadays. But what can we do about it? And do we even need to do anything about it? I'll ignore my political side, which states that for all scenarios where voting occurs, we must enact a single transferable vote to decide the winner because it is the best voting system, and instead discuss something I've seen floating around. Should we isolate jury members from one another until final tribal council? Immediately, the idea doesn't sound absolutely ridiculous. If the problem is jury members are talking too much and coming to conclusions about who's played the best game before they even walk into final tribal, then surely the solution is to stop them from doing that. After all, Fishback's vendetta against Spencer is part of what caused him to lose Cambodia. Maybe if the juries weren't able to play the game at Ponderosa, continuing to lie to each other for their own personal benefit, we would have jury members that we were confident are standing on their own 2 feet. Let's talk about the ethical issues with this proposal first. Imagine you're starving, cold, tired, and just been emotionally devastated. You're taken to weigh in, you're adjusting back to the real world, and then they just don't let you talk to anyone at all for the rest of your tenure on the show. Maybe you can talk to a resort staff member or two, but it's highly unlikely you'll form good bonds in that environment. As the jurors trickle in, sequestered from you, you're left to stew. You can't ask anyone what actually happened, you can't figure out what went wrong, you can never know who truly betrayed you, and you slowly lose your mind waiting for your chance to let it all out at the final tribal council. Yeah, that sounds pretty dystopian and messed up, not gonna lie. Now let's think about what this idea does at final tribal council. You've not been talking to fellow jury members, you have no idea what's truly been happening beyond what you heard at the tribals you've attended. A finalist says something, can you believe them? A juror interjects and says the finalist is lying? But who do you believe now? Then another juror interjects and backs up the finalist. Oh god, who's telling the truth now? I genuinely believe that despite its flaws, the ability to hash out the game in a relatively safe, comfortable, low-stakes environment is an important part of the jury's decision making. If we take that away, funnily enough we take power away from the jury. We make it way easier for them to be lied to by the finalists, and we make it way more difficult to figure out who's played any kind of game of Survivor. For this reason, I'm against the idea we should sequester the juries. But what other ways can we fix them? Do we even need to fix them? As Survivor is played, it's natural for it to evolve. And I think we're witnessing another evolution thanks to Survivor 45 and 46. Despite the players being massive superfans of the game, despite the jurors spending a lot of time with each other figuring out what was and wasn't a lie before Final Tribal Council, despite the open Final Tribal Council format that asks us to find the objectively best Survivor player, despite everything, we still ended up with a really close and exciting jury vote. Twice. Survivor has and always will continue to evolve, both with production's hand guiding us along the path, and without it. So while it is demonstrable that juries have become more homogenous over the years, and while it is true that the way juries operate may directly lead to that, I don't think it's a problem we need to fix. And besides, every time they try to fix Survivor, the players just adapt, and break it again, and again, and again. Seriously, Jeff, stop trying to fix Survivor. The players are just going to break it again, and then you'll get all pouty and sad, and it'll be a whole thing. Come on, it's okay. But what do you think? What are the issues with the current jury and Final Tribal Council format? How would you fix it? Do other shows do it better? Let me know. Until next time, I've been Henry Hickman Survivor, and I'll see you at the Final Tribal Council.